Hi everyone, welcome. In this lesson we are going to learn a very simple but frequently used expression in French that is the equivalent of the expression there is or there are in English. So there is or there are, we use this to express the idea that something is present. For example, I might say something in English like, there is or there's a book on the table. There's a book on the table. What does that mean? It means when I say there's a book, instantly we know that that means that it is present. And I tell you the place on the table, so there's a book on the table. If the item is plural, I might say something like, there are eggs in the refrigerator. So when I tell you that in your mind, you know, okay, eggs are present in the refrigerator. So there is or there are expresses the idea that something is present. So how do we do that in French? In French, it's very simple. It's the expression il y a. So it's three words, il, y, a. We put it all together, il y a. So il y a expresses the same idea as there is or there are in English. Now, il y a in French works for both singular and plural nouns. In the singular in English, you have to say there is, if it's just one item. If it's plural, then you have to say there are. In French, il y a works for both. First of all, the expression il y a, it comes from the verb avoir. Il a, you know, means he has or it has. And the word y means there. So for example, if we're talking about the bank, I might say something like, oh, the bank, yes, I go there on Fridays. And there in English is referring to the bank, the place we're talking about. In French, the word y does the same thing. So we put y together with il a, and we have il y a. So literally, it there has. The problem with this is if you translate it literally back to English, it makes no sense word for word. However, you just have to know and accept that for French speakers, il y a just means simply there is or there are. It expresses the idea that something is present. So all that being said, now we can practice. It's very simple. Il y a, there is or there are. So if I want to say, for example, there is a car. What's in the driveway? Well, there is a car. So il y a, you have to know how to say a car. A car in French is une voiture. Une voiture. So put it all together, and you have il y a une voiture, which means there is a car. How about there is a chair? Remember, a chair is une chaise. So if I want to say there is a chair, il y a une chaise. Il y a une chaise. Il y a une chaise. There is a book. A book is un livre. Un livre. So put it all together. Il y a un livre. Il y a un livre. There is a table. A table is une table. Il y a une table. Il y a une table. There is a door. Il y a une porte. Une porte. Il y a une porte. There is a door. There is a pencil. Remember, a pencil is un crayon. So put it all together. Il y a un crayon. Il y a un crayon. So let's take it a step further. Usually when we express the idea that something is present, we also talk about where that particular item or thing might be. So on the table gives you a little bit more information. So if I want to say there's a pencil on the table in French, I would say il y a un crayon sur la table. Il y a un crayon sur la table. So if you were to ask me the question, something like, avez-vous un crayon? Do you have a pencil? I might say, ah oui, il y a un crayon sur la table. There is a pencil on the table. How about plural? There are pencils. Remember, pencils, you have to make crayon plural by adding an S, and the indefinite article is des. So, il y a des crayons. Il y a des crayons. There are pencils. Des crayons can mean in English pencils or some pencils. The some in English is optional. You can leave it out. You could just say there are pencils, or you could say there are some pencils. But remember, some in French is des. Il y a des crayons. So let's take it a step further and say there are some pencils on the table. Il y a des crayons sur la table. Il y a des crayons sur la table. There are some pencils on the table. There are some books on the table. Remember, books is livres, des livres. Il y a des livres, and again on the table, sur la table. Il y a des livres. Il y a des livres sur la table. There are some pens on the desk. Remember, pen is le stylo, the pen. So the indefinite article would be des stylos. There are some pens. Il y a des stylos. Il y a des stylos on the desk. The desk is le bureau. Sur le bureau. So all together, il y a des stylos sur le bureau. And let's look at one more example. If I want to say there are 2 chairs and a table in the kitchen, of course we start off with il y a. So 2 chairs, 2 chaises. Il y a 2 chaises. So there are 2 chairs and a table. Et une table. Il y a 2 chaises et une table. And then finally, in the kitchen. So kitchen is la cuisine, and in would be dans. So put it all together. Dans la cuisine. Il y a 2 chaises et une table dans la cuisine. There are 2 chairs and a table in the kitchen. So remember, the point of this lesson is, if you want to say there is or there are in French, it's simply the expression il y a. It's fixed, it doesn't change. Whether you use a singular noun or a plural noun, it's always il y a. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, I would appreciate it very much if you'd give it a like. To continue learning French and go on to the next lesson, click on the video that appears here on your screen. See you soon. À bientôt.